Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. And as always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast, live from Amalie Arena in Suite 71, ahead of the game tonight between the Bolts and the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Pens are on the ice right now here at Amalie Arena, and we hope that the Tampa Bay Lightning can snap out of the funk a little bit, get back to their winning ways. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Recher for all the content today at Morning Skate and also tonight before and after the game against the Penguins. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Every single little bit helps. So thank you all for the support over the months. We're going to keep this train rolling. And, of course, every single time the Lightning have a home game and I'm here, boom, 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 we will be ready to roll. Shout out to David Terry and Stephanie and Benny and everybody for their support as well. If you want your comment read, we're doing the super chats now. So if you could, help a brother out. That's the way we're going to keep this thing going. The super chats will be the way to get your tweets or your comments written or read on the show. All right, big show today on the program. We're going to hear from Jon Cooper here in a moment. We also have exclusive one-on-ones with Darren Radish and Gage Gonsalves. We'll hear from Victor Hedman as well. 12:30 today, Xavier Scruggs is going to join us on the program, MLB Network, ESPN. Xavier, he is everywhere. This dude was just in Arizona. It's nonstop. He is insane, one of the best and brightest when it comes to talking baseball. And this is the kind of stuff you're going to get right here on the Recher podcast. Also, at 1 o'clock today, Zac Blobner. Zac on the mic joins us. My former co-host on WDAE joins us at 1 o'clock to talk about the Rays, to talk about Stu Sternberg, to talk about the Florida Gators, the men's basketball team on fire right now, heading to the Sweet 16. So can't wait to hear what Zac is, his thoughts on everything and also what he's been up to. People ask me all the time, what's the deal with Zac? How's Zac doing? Somebody came up to me at the Valspar over the weekend. How's Zac? What's Zac up to? He's doing a lot of great things. So we'll talk to Zac a little bit later on today at 1 o'clock. And then at 1:25 today, the great Ryan Callahan joins us on the program. You hear him on ESPN. You remember him from his days with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Rangers. He's going to join us on the program today. The Ryan Callahan Foundation, the big gala, the Gold Rush this Friday night at Armature Works. Again, go to RyanCallahanFoundation.com right now. All the information is up there. RyanCallahanFoundation.org. RyanCallahanFoundation.org. All the information, what this foundation does for families affected by pediatric cancer. It is insane. It is so it's tough to put into words how much it means to hear Ryan and his wife Kyla speak about these families that are afflicted. And just imagine, man, pediatric cancer, really? Your kids having to deal with stuff like that? Your heart goes out to the families. And they don't just help the kids. They help the siblings. They help the mom and dad. They help them with gas. They help them with cars. There's just so much. Every single year, they raise so much money for these families that are afflicted by pediatric cancer. I was so touched and moved that I ended up joining the foundation and helping out. So we have a lot of donations. The Rays helped out. The Bucks helped out. The Golden Diamond Source helped out. A lot of different people in the Bay Area have contributed some stuff for the live auctions. You can help as well. Even if you don't go to the event Friday night, go to RyanCallahanFoundation.org and you can donate. Every little bit helps. So Callie will join us at 1:25 today to talk about the event on Friday night at Armature Works and also talk some Lightning hockey and some NHL action as well. Again, follow me on all social media platforms at Recher. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe. Hit that notifications bell so you find out when we go live here on the program. We are here at Amalie Arena. Again, Lightning and I was going to say Pirates, Lightning and Pittsburgh Penguins tonight. Jon Cooper spoke today like he always does. And let's hear from Coop. And yes, he got distracted once again by my shoes. Just Jon Cooper for you, folks. Never a dull moment. Here's Coop from Morning Skate today. What did he have to say about, tonight? Anthony Cirelli, game number 500. That's gone pretty quick, hasn't it? And also, on this day, 12 years ago, March 25th, 2013, Jon Cooper was hired as the head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning. What an incredible run. He answered questions about that, Sidney Crosby, Anthony Cirelli, and a whole lot more. Take a listen. Here's what Coop had to say today at Morning Skate.
That you didn't already know beforehand.
I'm sorry, I was distracted by those shoes.
I don't blame you.
Okay, ask me again.
Coach said for the first time.
Yeah.
You already knew a lot about him, but did you learn anything about him? And by the way, he leads the league in points since the Four Nations. So did you teach him anything since then to help?
It's hard to, somebody's kind of built an aura of who he is and what he is. And until you get inside, you don't really, I guess, understand or appreciate it as much until you get to meet him. And there was Team Canada, and then there was Sid, and he was everybody looked up to him. You could tell the way he carries himself. He just exudes class, and he was everything I'd expected, everything I'd hoped for, and more. And he was, obviously a big reason why, in those tight games, there was a quiet calm in our team, and he was a big reason for that.
Jon, you say more. Anything surprising that stuck out to you about him, coaching him?
I don't know, surprising.
Or that stands out that like, oh, wow.
I don't know. There was a lot of, like I said, it's hard to say because he's might be a little more like quiet than I thought. He's like pretty reserved guy. Like he's calm, cool, like collected, that whole type. And he was a pleasure to be around. It was quite an experience.
On this day, 12 years ago, you became the head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning. What goes through your mind when you hear that, and how different are you now than you were on that day?
Do you remember what you were doing 12 years ago?
You probably don't want to know, honestly. It's probably a scary thing.
I want to know, like, how old are you right now?
28.
28 minus 12 is what?
6. Oh, gosh. 16. Yeah, nobody needs to know what was happening at 16.
Wow, 12 years. I didn't realize that. It's I think if that's the case, then it's probably been a pretty good run because it feels like it just started yesterday. And you get just a big believer, and you surround yourself with good people. Good things will happen, and that's what's happened. And I think there's been a common owner and a group that's now come in with us that share the same philosophies, and a common general manager, common coach, and just a group that's believed in the same thing for over a decade now. And it's over time it's proven to work. And but I just, for me, it's all about the people, and I think this organization's just top of the list in the class of people they bring in. And so just thankful they've come around this long.
One of the people that's been here for a good chunk of that is Cirelli tonight, or his next game, I should say, will be 500 in the NHL. What does he bring to this group? What separates him?
He has a drive that not a lot of people can get to, and I to get to this league, you have to have some special qualities. But his I think Tony Cirelli plays every shift like he thinks it's going to be his last, and he doesn't take for granted being in this league. And so when you kind of have that way about him, guys seem to follow him because he just does all the selfless acts. He does all the things that really take a lot of hard work, and he's not afraid of it. And like I said, he's played, the best way I can put it is he just plays every shift like he's never going to get another one.
Jon Cooper right there. And you got to look at Coop and just think, man, it's so wild. Time has flown when it comes to Jon Cooper. 12 years. And he was going back and forth with Ben Pierce, the team reporter who we've had on our show, the team writer. We love Ben. It was a great back and forth with those two guys. Think about it. Where were you 12 years ago? I wasn't even in media then. 12 years ago, March 25th, 2013, I was probably on a baseball field somewhere. Was I? Where was I 12 years ago? 2023. So I moved November 12th. Yeah, so I moved back to New York. I lived in New York in 2013. But yeah, I was working at Ruby Tuesdays, and I was coaching baseball up on Long Island for a year. So yeah, it's crazy how times have changed. And to talk about Anthony Cirelli, who's been there with him for the last number of years. I mean, those two guys will forever be intertwined. Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel, those guys getting the nod for Team Canada this year, helping them win the gold medal. Does that happen if Jon Cooper's the head coach? Maybe not. But just to see the amount of success that those guys have brought the program, have brought this team and just have brought so many good times and good vibes to Bolts Nation. Like, it's amazing. Jon Cooper, the longest tenured coach, I believe, in the NHL, and I don't think it's any argument that he's the best one out there. Future Hall of Famer, 2-time Stanley Cup champion, and he loves it here. He loves the Tampa Bay area. It's crazy, man. 12 years. We've had so much success, hearing so much success from Coop. Really, really good stuff. And, another reason why he's had a lot of success is because he's had some incredible leaders, including this young man right here, the captain, Victor Hedman. Let's hear what he had to say after morning skate today.
No, I think start with the Dallas game was a really good game from our side, and the way we played, and the way we were connected on the ice. And last two not as good, and obviously we got the results that we did not want. But at the end of the day, we return home with a good feeling and get ready to go tonight.
How do you make this stretch of dozen games to round out the regular season in terms of gaining momentum going into, obviously you haven't coached a postseason part yet, but going into that stretch?
Yeah, obviously that's the main goal is to build up our game and be as good as we can when the postseason starts. And we got to get in first, but if we play the way we know we're capable of, I'm sure we will. So at the end of the day, there's still a lot of things up for grabs in regards to the standings, and so that's what we're looking at. We're trying to catch the teams above us, and obviously we need to win games to do that. So today's a good test for us. Obviously a long travel day yesterday, and got our legs going this morning and get ready for tonight. So bottom line is we need better than we had in the last two games, and we know that inside this room, and we're eager to get out there tonight.
Victor Hedman speaking right there earlier today after morning skate. And the key is with this team is defensively. And it's not just the defense. It's not just the guys that are on the blue line. It's defending as a team. That means forwards getting back. And a lot of it has to do with puck management. The wounds that are inflicted on the Bolts a lot of times are self-inflicted. You got to make sure you take care of the puck, especially in your own defensive zone. And what I really like today from morning skate is that there was an onus on not just playing fast and moving the puck fast, but 5 guys working together to get the puck out of the zone. And you saw that in multiple kind of rounds throughout the practice where all 5 guys would go into the corner where the puck would be, and the defense and the forwards would work together to get the puck out of the zone. It's not just the defense's job to be able to flip the puck out, or it's just not just the forward's job to just back check and just go deep into this. Yeah, because then you leave a bunch of different guys open. It has to be 5 guys working in concert, working together. And I like that. That was the thing that they worked on today. One thing that we do know with the Bolts is that when they go on these road trips, sometimes when they come back, that first game is a little bit of a doozy. They either start out slow or they play 40 good minutes and then they wilt down the stretch. they need a full 60-minute performance tonight. And Pittsburgh is one of those funky teams. And I didn't, continue the video when we spoke to Jon Cooper, but one of the Pittsburgh media guys says, are you kind of prepared for a little bit of a track meet tonight? Because when these two teams play, regardless of what the records are, there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of up and down. And Coop even said something to the effect of, yeah, when Malkin and Crosby does something, it seems like Cooch and Point want to one-up them or vice versa. So these games are rarely dull. And I know this isn't the same Pittsburgh Penguins team that, we've gotten used to seeing over the last decade or so. But there's still a lot of good, talented players on this team. And the Lightning cannot let up. They're in the thick of it right now in the Atlantic. And having home ice, we spoke about this on the program yesterday, having home ice is going to be pivotal for this team moving forward. Their road record is not as good this year as has been in years past. So finishing in first in the division or finishing at least second in the division so you have home ice advantage in that 2-3 matchup is absolutely huge. All right, I got a chance for a couple of one-on-ones today, which is always great to be able to talk to Darren Radish and to talk to Gage Gonsalves. Now, obviously Hedman in a scrum, Cooper in a scrum, but sometimes I like to kind of go over to some guys one-on-one to be able to talk to them. And Darren Radish is a guy that's really busted his ass to be able to get up with the big club and stay with the big club. So I asked him about, the importance of playing a 60-minute game today and also 11-7. A lot of people ask, why did they do 11-7? What did the guys feel about it? So here's what Ratty had to say. Here's the one-on-one with him from earlier today after morning skate. Biggest thing you guys learned about yourself over those last two games, obviously not the defensive effort that you guys wanted, but obviously working today, it looked like you guys were focusing on some specific things during morning skate.
Yeah, we weren't too good defensively the last two games, and we worked on that a little bit. I think we liked our offensive game in Vegas when we pucked behind them and it got to work. But like I said, not happy with the defensive side, and hopefully change things tonight.
Coop always talks about that first game after a road trip, and trying to manage the emotions. Sometimes you guys start fast, sometimes you kind of peter out a little bit at the end. How do you focus right off the jump to play a full 60?
I think you just got to be ready. Like I said, it's hit or miss on the start of the game on our homestand, but you just got to be ready for the game and prepare the same way you do, and just be ready for the game.
How important is that to get some home games here, some home cooking? It seems like throughout this year you've had some really kind of wonky road trips, but to get like a nice little time at home here now, how important is that?
Yeah, it's good. We got a good record here, and we're excited to play in front of the fans and play at home. We're excited for this week coming up, and we got some big games coming up.
Who does the 11-7 a lot? How long does it take to adjust to something like that? Not every team does it. You've been here a while now, and does it ever what is that like to be able to know you don't know necessarily what partner you're going to go out with?
It's tough sometimes, but we're all pretty close group in the back end, and we all are playing with each other. Whether you're going out with one guy or the next, it's something that you have to adjust for, and just so you're ready for next.
Good stuff there for Brady. And I understand the idea behind 11-7, right? But you want to be able to get some consistency, I think, with the forward lines, 12-6. I wouldn't be surprised if they win 12-6 tonight. The lines were Gensel, Point, Kucherov. Second line was Cirelli, Paul, and Hagel. Third line with Gordos, Gonsalves, who we'll hear from in a second here, and Bjorkstrand. And then the fourth line with Chaffee, Gergensons, and Glendening. So maybe 12-6, you have last change. Maybe that can make a difference tonight. Maybe get some flow offensively as well. And then when you look at a guy like Gage Gonsalves, I really like what I've seen from him as far as his growth and his aggression. I got a chance to a nice little one-on-one with Gage after morning skate too. Kind of the big, goal today, first game coming after a road trip, obviously didn't end the way you wanted, but, just kind of first kind of mindset going into the game tonight, knowing how important it is to play a full 60.
I think we're just going in with kind of a defensive mindset. I think, the past couple of games we've done a lot of good things, and little mistakes are kind of just they're going in the net right now, which always sucks. But I think we can clean up kind of our team D zone, just everybody being a little bit more connected. Hopefully, we can get back to the success we're kind of used to.
Is that more frustrating or less frustrating knowing that when you have had issues this year, it is on the defensive side? I mean, sometimes the puck doesn't go in the net, but defensively, is that more frustrating, less frustrating, or is it one of those things where, like, you know what you got to do? So does it take practice? Is it a morning skate thing or just a mindset thing to kind of improve that side of the ice?
Yeah, I think it's just, getting back. I think a lot of it's on the forwards and the D, kind of both parts, just kind of working together. Sometimes we're getting too stretched out, and we gotta get kills in the corners and stuff like that. But yeah, hopefully we can just kind of get back to our roots here. We did a great run at the All-Star break or whatever it was, with giving up 2 goals, 3 goals, and stuff like that. So hopefully we can kind of just turn back the clock and go back to that type of hockey.
What about you individually? I mean, it seems once you got called back up, it seemed like that was like exactly what you needed. Your confidence seems to be growing. You can tell right on the ice. But when you have that mindset, is it more shoot first mentality? Is it just be more aggressive? What's that mindset for you that seems to have really clicked as the season is going on?
I think just being more aggressive. I think just not hesitating when I see a play or plays that I've made in the past, or trying to do something that maybe I did in the AHL but I didn't do up here. So I think just not hesitating, kind of just playing whatever cards I'm kind of dealt here. If there's a play to be made, I got to try and make it. I can't just flip it in or try and survive in this league. You have to bring something if you want to be in the lineup every day. So I'm just trying to bring my game offensively, obviously try and help the team put up points or gain momentum, or even if it's drawing penalties or whatever it is. But hopefully just keep kind of building that trust with the guys in the room here and the coaching staff to keep putting me out in defensive situations. So hopefully just trying to keep moving forward in that.
Good stuff there from Gage Gonsalves. And, it's the ability to be able to talk to these guys one-on-one is huge. Speaking of Darren Radish, before that video about golf, big golfer. He wants to go play at the Valspar. I told him I played a couple weeks ago with my buddy Aaron Jacobson. He was like, I got to get out there because I hear Darren Radish is a hell of a golfer, him and Nick Perbix. And then Gonsalves talking to him about his aggression and his mindset, how he looks so much more comfortable this time around with the big club. And speaking about the greatness of Nikita Kucherov, him and I were going back and forth about how much he watches Kuch and the effort that he puts in. And, I mentioned to him going to the All-Star game and how some of the other players like McKinnon and McDavid and Barzell, how they talk about Nikita Kucherov. Because you look at McDavid and you look at McKinnon, they're like bulls in a china shop, right? They're going crazy. They're going 100 miles an hour. That's not what Nikita Kucherov does. Nikita Kucherov does it at his own pace. He slows everything down. He makes you almost play at his speed, and he's still able to put up 100 points a season. It's an amazing feat. Just the way he goes about his business, right? He does it at just a different tempo than everybody else. He slows everything down. Just to listen to hear what Gage Gonsalves had to say about that and putting in the work with him and learning from him, I really like a guy like Gage Gonsalves. I just think he keeps getting better and better and better, and he's going to have to take his game to the next level if the Lightning want to make another long postseason run. All right, so again, Lightning and Penguins tonight, 7 o'clock puck drop here at Amalie Arena. Follow me at Recher for all of the latest and the greatest, and especially the post-game videos. I got you covered. Big news yesterday on the campus of the University of South Florida, as Bryan Hodgson was named the head coach of our USF men's basketball team, one of the top recruiters in the country. A rising head coach, Michael Kelly, has called him, and no doubt about it, this guy is well respected around the country. And if you just watch on social media yesterday, there were so many different people that thought this was a freaking home run hire for the Bulls. There was a lot of reports out there that he was going to UNLV. But think about it. Would you rather live in Las Vegas or would you rather live in Tampa? Well, depending on what your vices are. I mean, Tampa's for me. That's where I would be. But back-to-back years at Arkansas State, 20-win seasons, two of the best seasons, the two best seasons that they've had, the best in Arkansas State program history, 25-11 this year. Sun Belt Conference regular season title. This is a guy that a lot of people circled as if he moves somewhere, they're going to get a young coach that is going to not only be able to relate to these players, play a fast up-tempo type of game, but also be able to recruit his ass off. I am so thoroughly excited about Bryan Hodgson being the new head coach of USF. And one of the most important things to me is if you go to gousfbulls.com, you can go check out right at the end some specifics about him and where he's from. A Western New York native, and I went to college in Western New York, so I know a lot about, what type of people live in that area. Blue collar, working class, very family oriented. Hodgson was placed in foster care as an infant and adopted at age 2. He mentors children through Big Brothers Big Sisters of America. He is also the founder and president of Coaching Love Incorporated, which raises awareness for at-risk youth, particularly those in the foster care system or waiting to be adopted through basketball and other sports. As much as we want a great basketball coach for USF, I think one thing that we sometimes lose in the entire narrative when it comes to college coaches, and we got that with Amir Abdur-Rahim, is we want a guy that has the ability to be a great leader of young men. Think about all the things we spoke about when it came to Amir. It was a lot less about the X's and O's and the plays that they drew up coming out of a timeout. It was more about how he led those young men and how he believed in them, even when maybe they didn't believe in themselves, how he galvanized this area. Tampa Bay's home for hoops. And I was really hoping that Michael Kelly was able to find, or that he focused his efforts on finding that type of guy that wasn't just a really good basketball coach, but a guy that was a great leader of young men. And I truly believe he found that person in Bryan Hodgson. And when you look at what Michael Kelly has done with his most recent hires there at USF, I mean, my man's track record is getting better and better and better when you look at what he's been able to do, bringing in Coach Alex Golesh with the football team. When you look at somebody like Coach Mitch Hannes for baseball, they are playing at a top tier level right now in the conference. They just won 2 of 3 against UAB. When you look at what Coach Mindy McCord has done with that lacrosse team, oh, wait, they just scored another goal. And when you look at Coach Jenkins and Coach Fernandez and Coach Erickson, I'm not going to name them all because they'll be here all day. But if Michael Kelly is tabbing Coach Bryan Hodgson to be the next leader of this program, he has earned that benefit of the doubt that this is going to be the guy. And again, not just the right coach, but the right man to lead this program going forward. Kudos to Michael Kelly, not rushing, took his time, made sure that Coach Bryan Hodgson was the right fit for the green and gold. I think this is a home run hire. The excitement is back with USF men's basketball. I mean, I had Rico Bosco follow me from Barstool. It's like, right? He's ready to jump aboard. He wants to join the SoFlo Rodeo. We know what happened in the 24-25 season, and we show a lot of love to Ben Fletcher and everybody out there for what they were able to do to kind of persevere through those tough times. The legacy and the impact of Amir Abdur-Rahim will never be forgotten, ever. But it is time for a new chapter for USF men's basketball. You know Amir would want that. You know Amir would want the next full-time head coach to be a guy that focused not just on the players, but the people. I'm excited, man. I wish they played tomorrow. I'm so happy with this hire. And I reached out to USF last night, and we are efforting to get Coach Bryan Hodgson as well as Michael Kelly on the program. That'll happen probably sometime in the next week or two. And this is what I love about USF. They know that I don't cosplay as a supporter of South Florida. They know that it isn't just something where I support the team or any of the teams when it's convenient for me. I'm Team Tampa Bay all the way. And somebody asked me that yesterday about that, about, the Sun and the Rowdies and all these different teams. And, because you don't necessarily have certain people on when I was on the radio because, at the top of the hour, it had to be NFL talk or it had to be topic of the day. And every single hour you had to refresh. I don't necessarily subscribe to thinking that that's the way to do it. We live here in the Tampa Bay area. We will definitely start inward and then go out to some national news. But we're going to focus on people here in the Tampa Bay area. We're going to focus on USF and UT and everything that's going on with the Sun, the Rowdies, the Rays, the Bolts, the Bucks. We are here for you. And that's why it's important to support local, guys. I say this so many times. The Tampa Bay Times, get on there. Xavier Scruggs running 5 minutes late. We'll get him on momentarily. Support local. The Tampa Bay Times, LightningInsider.com, Pewter Report, Joe Bucks fan. Support our people here in the Tampa Bay area. We are a growing city, a team with 3 professional sports franchises, with college teams that are just incredible. I think about UT baseball and UT softball, and what we had we had all the different coaches on so far this year, but looking at the ability for even UT men's basketball. Remember that? I mean, when you have so many different coaches out there that can impact our area in so many different ways, like it's a great place to be. And what Coach Link has been able to do for our Tampa Spartans. I mean, I know unfortunately they took the L, but we're talking about, NCAA D2 getting an opportunity to go out there and do some damage. So again, I don't know if I mentioned it, but shout out to Coach Link Darner and everybody out there. And gotta love UT Athletics. My guy Adrian Bush, the men's soccer team. Really, really good stuff there. All right. So also on the program today, we'll have Zac Blobner joining us at 1:00 if you're just joining us. And then, of course, Kalioski joining us, Ryan Callahan. I can't wait to check that out. Thoughts and prayers go up to Juju. I don't know if you guys saw this last night, but Juju Watkins tore ACL last night. USC #1 overall, 30-3 this year. Probably the best player in college hoops this year. Man, or her and Cooper flag go back and forth. But they win last night, 96-59. But they won the game, but they lost. Juju Watkins, who had such an incredible season, it was just heartbreaking to see her go down. You hate to see that. You hate to see any athletes, but especially the youth, especially with, knowing that college is fleeting and they only have so many games playing there. God, that sucked. Just watch that. Your heart goes out to Juju Watkins and her family. Let's see what else. Oh, also in the AJ McCarthy, the Vikings haven't told me I'm a QB1 in 2025. So they're going to go out and get another guy. They get Rodgers. It's just funky. But that Minnesota team, a fantastic coach with Kevin O'Connell. So I trust whoever the quarterback is going to be there. He's going to do a really, really good job. Another thing that stood out was today, Jacob Chitrin, he signs an 8-year deal, $72 million. He has been fantastic there with the Washington Capitals. How good have the Caps been this year? They're going to get the #1 overall seed in the East. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody. But the Caps, and we'll see if they're able to carry over that play to the playoffs, because it's one thing to be able to do it in the regular season, but the postseason is a completely different animal. So yeah, there you go. Let's see what else. Rays, I spoke to Ryan Pepio today. Send him my well wishes. They obviously are going to kick off their season on Friday over at Steinbrenner Field. So Friday will just be kind of like an hour, 90-minute show, because I know there's going to be a lot of baseball talk all day, and I want to try to get over to Steinbrenner Field for at least a little bit before I hightail it out there. I got to go to the Ryan Callahan Foundation. There's a lot going on this weekend. But yeah, we have the Gold Rush for the Ryan Callahan Foundation Friday night at Armature Works. Opening day, obviously, for the Tampa Bay Rays. So I'm going to try to do the show for like an hour, go to Steinbrenner Field, go there for like an hour or two, and then go to Armature Works. Do a little bit of everything to be able to, Say that I was there. You want to be able to say you were there for that first game at Steinbrenner Field for the Rays. Saturday, I won't be here at Emily Arena. I'll be on the call for USF baseball against Tulane, another big AAC matchup there. And then Sunday, I don't know. I might go to the Rays game. Might go to the Rays game. Might be on the USF call for the radio. So we shall see. Rowdy's back in action Saturday night. Their last away game before they have a bunch of home games. Again, for all that information, go to rowdysoccer.com. We'll have somebody on the program, probably Lewis Hilton, the captain, on with us tomorrow. Of course, Eric Erlinson joins us at 1 o'clock mañana. Ed Encina joins us at 1:30. I've been trying to get a hold of Ryan Bass from FanDuel Sports Network. He's been so busy ahead of the season opener on Friday. If you missed our chat with Andy Freed, that was up on my YouTube page, so you can just obviously click on it on here, tiny.cc/JRetcher for all the chats that we had yesterday on the program. But yeah, it could have been a lot worse for Shane McClanahan. Again, just talked to Ryan Pepio before, sending him my congratulations. So happy for him. It sucks that it has to come when Shane gets banged up. But the fact that you know that Shane is not going to be out for a long time, it's just going to be some nerve damage, 6 weeks, 2 months or so. He wasn't going to pitch a ton this year anyway, coming back from Tommy John surgery. I would think that at the very, 125 innings, 130 innings, maybe. Would he get to 150? Maybe. I don't know. I think it would be less than that. But yeah, 125, 130 for Shane. But yeah, you look at all the different starters that they had: Shane Boz, Shane McClanahan, Zach Littell, Taj Bradley, Ryan Pepio. I like it, man. I like that you have the ability to throw a bunch of different guys out there with some different pitches. We know Littell is not a guy that's going to be thrown in the 90s, but he's going to be able to get outs. Everything's got a little cut to it, a little change piece. It's going to keep hitters off balance. And then in the offense, last year, and I love what Andy Freed had to say yesterday about how you went from having a team that scored, 800 runs to a team last year that scored 600 runs, the worst offense in Rays history. That's tough to believe. That's hard to believe. That for a team that was so bad for so long, the Devil Rays years, but the worst offense in Rays history was 2024. You still had Yandy, you still had Brandon Lau, you still had Josh Lowe, right? For the first half of the year, you had Paredes, you had Randy Arozarena, and that was the worst offense in team history. That's crazy to me. You have to think they'd have to progress to the bean a little bit, right? Even just to get a few more runs, to be able to go with the pitching, to be able to go with the defense. Man, it's hard to believe. Are they going to be able to adjust to playing outside, to playing at Yankee Stadium? I think they will. For as much as people forget to mention this, like they spend their entire spring training outside. Like when you play at Port Charlotte and play all these other parks, they're all outside. So yes, I understand it's hot in the summer, but everybody's going to have to be able to adjust to that. It's not just them. It's not just the ability for them. Man. So it looks like Xavier is not going to be able to make it. He's got some stuff going on, but we'll get to that here momentarily. But when you look at the situation with the Rays, and again, when you start looking at what everybody else is doing, I think that's where you get in trouble. Who cares what happens? We're so, and this is what drives me crazy when it comes to the coverage about the Rays in this town. Stop looking at the situation like, woe is me. The team does not look at it like that. Oh, what are the Yankees doing? What are the Red Sox doing? What are the Orioles doing? Who gives a crap what they're doing? Who cares? Who cares what they're doing? The Rays do things their own way. The Rays have to focus on what they do to make themselves successful. They didn't go, you know what, we're not going to do the opener because the Yankees didn't do it. We're not going to go out there and employ the shifts when the Yankees don't do it. Who cares? Just go out there and do what you got to do. And I feel like locally, whether it's the media, whether it's the fan base, just like don't worry about that kind of stuff. Just go out there and support the team. Go out there, and regardless of what's going on with the stadium, they have nothing to do with that. Focus on Kevin Cash. Focus on the players. Focus on what we can see this season. And it looks like Xavier is going to jump on in a minute here. Junior Caminero is the guy that we should be focused on. Is it unfair to put all the stuff on his back? Fair or not, it's going to happen. I like when people say, don't expect too much out of Junior Caminero. Don't expect too much out of young players. Like, young players produce in every freaking sport. When you sit here and you start worrying, oh, man, I hope it's not too much. And this guy, he's a professional athlete. We're not asking him to go out. It's not life or death, right? He's going to be batting in the middle of the lineup. If Junior was batting eighth and you were going to try to like, all right, it's going to be a slow burn, a slow build. All right, that's one thing. That's not happening. Junior's going to be playing third every day, and he's going to be batting in the middle of the lineup. So I don't want to hear anything about like, oh, let's take it easy with Junior Caminero. No, I have high expectations and high hopes that he's going to be able to come right out the gates and be able to do big things. I don't think that's unrealistic. Nor am I going to be surprised if he struggles. Like, right? Like, you can do that. You can have high expectations for a guy like Junior Caminero, but also realize that struggles could happen. That's fine. But have him this year in the middle of the lineup where at the very least your presence is making an impact on everybody else. You don't think these people know what Junior Caminero did in the offseason? Everybody knows. When you look at the field, you're playing at Steinbrenner with that short porch and right. I said this with Andy Freed yesterday. BJ Upton and Evan Longoria made a living over going Oppo Taco at Yankee Stadium and hitting a line drive 315. You know, they didn't have to do much to be successful there, hitting the ball opposite field, driving the ball that way. I think Junior can do the same thing. He's got that power center to right. You know, and I know some people, and I see a hammer saying, how about we change the batting coach? Been long overdue. It's not necessarily that. Those guys are really kind of help guys breaking out of slumps here and there. And let's not forget, Chad Mottola, Brady North, and the crew over there 2 years ago, they were the guys that were in charge of that team that scored 800 runs. At the end of the day, you got to have talent. You got to have guys that are going to be able to swing it. The hitting coach is there to just kind of like guide you and help you and to be able to kind of just nurture you and push you in the direction this way or that way and to be there to kind of, you don't hear a lot about hitting coaches. There's only a few guys that I just remember all over the years that were just mind-blowing. Rudy Jaramillo was one of them. I know Derek Shelton was the guy that took a lot of heat here in the Tampa Bay area for what he was unable to do during his time with the Rays. But let's not forget, the Rays put a lot of their resources into pitching and defense. And you're not going to have to spend as much money on pitching and defense as you do with offense. That's just something that is never going to change. But let's hope that the Rays can come up with some new things that are going to make sure that they're ahead of the trends. I brought this up many times. How come the Rays can come up with things on pitching and defense that are cutting edge, that are stuff that people have never seen before, but they can't do it offensively? New ways to bunt, new ways to hit by the runners, new hit and runs. Like, why can't they come up with stuff like that? It's there. Don't tell me that things can't be changed, because they can. But I'm excited for the Rays and excited for the 2025 MLB season. Let's bring him in. I know he's a busy man. We're going to go right to him. Our guy, Xavier Scruggs. What's going on, brother? Thank you for making some time to join me today.
Yo, what's going on, Jay?
Ah, man, I appreciate you, brother. Listen, you just got back from Arizona, man. I saw you took the fam out there. What was your biggest takeaway from going out there to Arizona and seeing some ball out there, seeing kind of how the other side lives? We're so used to, sunshine ball here in Florida. But what was your big takeaway from going out there to Arizona?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is just like everything is so close out there. The weather was nice. When you think about being able to play multiple different teams, that's what it's all about. Like, spring training can be so redundant when it's slow and you're playing, say you're in West Palm and you're playing the same 4 teams, right? It can be tough. But over there, you get so many different options because every team is like maybe 30 minutes away from each spot. So got to visit a bunch of different teams, hit a bunch of different spots, but also one of my biggest takeaways was looking at the Oakland A's, a team that is young but has spent some money this offseason, and not a lot of people are counting them to be one of the top favorites of the AL West, but they look to be a strong team here going into the season.
What was it like to meet Was that the first time you met Ichiro?
No, I actually played with Ichiro in 2016. I was on the same
Nice.
team with him with the
With the Marlins. With
Marlins.
the
So
Marlins. Okay.
yeah, so he's definitely it was cool getting to catch up with them, congratulate him for being Hall of Famer, and just catching up with an old teammate. We have a close thing, as far as a close group that was with that Marlins team, in which unfortunately we lost Jose Fernandez. So, but adversity like that keeps guys close together.
We always remember that home run. What was that home run like to see D. Gordon hit that home run after we lost Jose?
Yeah, that was an unreal moment. Literally, it did not feel like we were playing baseball. It felt like it was something out of a movie. It was something that none of us will ever forget too, just because of all the heartbreak that was going on during that time. But it reminds you that there's things that are bigger than baseball, right? Life is much bigger than the sport itself, and it keeps things under perspective.
Yeah, I'm at Emily right now. They got the national anthem in the background, so that's why I keep muting the mic. I remember coaching against Jose Fernandez in high school, man. It's pretty wild that,
Wow.
How just the years go by, and it's been so long since, it seems like he was just here, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Rays, man, going into the season? Obviously, good news that Shane Callahan isn't going to be out for as long as we thought. Just a nerve issue. Ryan Pepio will get the nod on opening day. But what are your thoughts on the Rays and where they stack up in the AL East, coming up in the 2025 season?
Yeah, it's going to be tough, right? The division is extremely tough. It's a division in which you have to have your ace starting pitcher. And unfortunately, the way you can look at the Shane McClanahan thing is, yeah, he'll be out for a little bit. And that's going to hurt them for a little bit. But the good thing is they have depth in starting pitching. That's the one thing that you're going into the season hoping that you have. And you get Rasmussen back, obviously Shane Boss. You have, Bradley. There's guys that can still fill the need. And a lot of rotations in Major League Baseball are not as deep as the Tampa Bay Rays. So that's one thing you're leaning on, right? Pitching and defense in a major way. They have to figure out a way to get offense going. To me, that's going to be the focus for them, is how are they going to score runs on a nightly basis, specifically in their division, in which offenses are extremely tough. They're going to need guys to step up. They're going to need Yandy Diaz to kind of turn around a tough part of early on last season, right? They're going to need whether it be Josh Lowe, whether it be Brandon Lau. It's going to be guys that are going to have to provide some juice in the middle of the order to get to really run produce here.
What about the rest of the teams in the AL East? Who are you looking at as far as the top dogs there?
Honestly, after the Garrett Cole injury, I'm looking at Boston is going to be tough. Like they have a healthy rotation going into the season. Obviously free agent signings were big for them, going and getting Alex Bregman as a consistent performer that can play third base. It looks like, be a situation where him playing third, maybe Devers DHing, but now you also have young players coming up. A Christian Campbell has looked to make this team at second base. They have all the pieces in order for them to make a postseason run. It just depends on how healthy they stay. And the same thing goes for every other team in that division.
Let's talk about what else you're seeing in the American League as far as, you look at, the Guardians. Are they a team that takes a step forward? You look out west, are the Mariners that team? Because I feel like Seattle's one of those teams, especially with the starting pitching. Well, they could be a team if they get the right bats at the right time. Seattle's a team that nobody wants to play come postseason because you got guy after guy after guy that's throwing in the upper 90s.
Yeah. I think you mentioned a good point. Like Seattle, when we talk about pitching, they have it. They have everything that they need. That was just about the offense, kind of what we talked about with the Rays. The team that I'm still weary of is the Astros. Like, they're still going to be an extremely tough team, and they have all their pitchers back from last year from a starting standpoint. They still have one of the game's best closers and Hader. And then you look at now they've added Isaac Paredes, who, was traded from the Rays over to the Cubs last year. You've added, another outfielder in Cam Smith as a rookie who's had an amazing spring training. And then you think about there's flexibility there. They have so many guys to where now they can move Altuve to left field. Yordan Alvarez is still one of the best hitters in this game. Now, the loss of Kyle Tucker will be significant, but you also add a Christian Walker to this lineup. So there's a lot of work that they did this offseason in order for them to maintain a really talented roster. And I don't think we can discount what they've done for the past 7-8 years.
Yeah, I love the patience at the plate for Christian Walker, and I think that goes hand in hand with how Houston approaches the game with Altuve and Alvarez and those guys. I feel like Isaac Paredes was built to play there, right? Strict pull, right? That short porch kind of thing. I don't want to say short porch, but left field the way. I mean, if he doesn't hit 30 home runs this year, I think that'll be a crime. What about the National League, man? I mean, you look at the East, you look at some of the big studs out there with the Phils and the Braves, and, what happens with the Mets. Now they get Juan Soto. You and I, we spoke about Juan Soto last time and his departure going to the Mets. Let's start in the NL East. How do you see that whole thing shaking out? Because it seems like every year Atlanta has another guy that they go, oh, yeah, here's another dude that can, he could throw 98 and he's going to start and he could go 7 strong every day.
Yeah. Atlanta's going to be tough. I still look at the Phillies as the top of this class. I know Atlanta had a lot of injuries last year, and they still were able to perform well enough to be right there. But the Phillies, from a superstar level and also to a depth level, they outweigh every team in the National League East to me. Last year they got off to a good start, and that's one thing they hadn't done over the previous couple of years. I'll be interested to see which team gets off to a hot start, because I think that could be the definition of what this division looks like, even for the Mets. If they get off to a good start themselves, look like they have some pitching. There's a lot of uncertainty with their starting pitching. The offense looks to be pretty much the same, and you bring into Juan Soto into the fold. That's a good thing, but pitching, there's uncertainty, so I can't put them at the top at the moment. Right. But they will surprise teams, and they will be just as solid as they were last year, if not better. A lot of it just depends on what happens with that staff. But I got the Phillies at the top of this NL East.
I'm excited about the Nationals, too. A guy that I coached when he was 10 years old, Trey Lipscomb on the Nationals. So really great to see him. And there's some good young talent there. So we'll see. Probably not going to be at the top of the list, but, just guys that are, sometimes those young they don't know any better, right? Everybody else is looking at them. Oh, yeah, don't forget about us. How about the Central? The Central, everybody kind of forgets about the Brewers, it seems like, going into the season, yet they ball out every year. But you lose an emotional leader like Willy Adames, he goes to San Francisco. I look at the Cubbies and I go, you get Tucker. I feel like this is kind of the time for Chicago to make a move. All right. I know Cincinnati's got good young players. Pittsburgh's got some good young players. Still trying to see what St. Louis is all about. But I feel like now's the time for the Cubs to take a step forward. Do you agree with that?
No, I do. I look at, there was obviously some injuries as well. So it just so much of it, Jay, depends on the course of the season and whether or not you stay healthy, especially from a starting pitching standpoint. I still like the Brewers, even though with the loss of Adames. I thought seeing what they did last year, going and being able to use, what was it, like 20-something different starting pitchers and still get to where they got to. Yes, they'll lose Devin Williams, but they still have a strong bullpen. I still like the Brewers. It's going to be close with the Cubs. I think it's a Cubs team that went out, made moves. They recognize the window that they're in. They recognize their front office is maybe out of jobs if they don't win either as well. And they have Craig Counsell, who, they're paying the top dollar to. So they're going to be tough as well. But Cincinnati, to me, you make a great point. It's a team that's young. It's fun. They go get Tito Francona, and they're going to be tough to beat. And, I'm not going to count out, the Pirates are not a team to me that is going to win this division, but it's still going to be one of those tough teams to beat with the three-headed monster of Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller, and Jared Jones in that rotation too.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Skeens on the mound again. I don't know if you saw that video the other day of this is how it looks like if you hit Paul Skeens, and it was just like some AI thing, and it was just everything had some kind of movement on it, and it was like, oh, here's 98 with a tail on it. Like, yeah, no thanks, I'm good on that. And then the NL West. I mean, the Dodgers get another guy and another guy and another guy, but who's that second team though? Is it San Fran? Is it the Padres? Or I feel like Arizona, we forget they were in the World Series a couple years ago. They went out and got Corbin Burns. They made a switch. They went away from Christian Walker. They brought in Josh Naylor. I feel like Arizona is one of those teams again, X, that they're lurking right there in plain sight. Everybody else can have and do what they want, but Torey Lovullo is like, fine, we're good. We'll do our thing here because they got some unbelievable starters as well. I think the NL West, even though we know who's number one, there's some really good freaking teams out there.
Yeah, I think you might have cut out for a second, but I think, you make a great point about the D-backs. I think when you add an ace like a Corbin Burns, you're expecting to compete. And for the amount of years that they added him, they're going to be doing that multiple years, right? Trying to compete for multiple seasons. Something still tells me to be a little bit weary of the Padres. Still some good, solid starting pitching when you talk about Dylan Cease, Michael King, and they have the superstars as well. Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis, and now you could throw, Jackson Merrill in that conversation as well. So I like the Padres, and I specifically like the manager and Mike Schilt, who was my former manager with the Cardinals. This is a guy that understands, clubhouse culture. He completely turned that around a 180. We saw what the Padres did, arguably the best team in the second half of last year. So I'm looking at the Dodgers competing with the Padres and the D-backs. The Giants are going to put up numbers too, but it's going to come down to the Dodgers and Padres ultimately fighting it out.
X, before I let you go, is there a team or a player that we haven't mentioned yet that, and this is why I love, you don't just follow the same path as everybody else. You're looking at things from a different perspective. Is there a team or is there a player that you're looking at that is not getting nearly enough of the attention before the season starts?
I mean, he's probably getting attention, but we touched on the Cincinnati Reds. I think Elly De La Cruz is turning into the face of baseball. When you can hit the home run, when you can steal the base, when you can throw as hard as anybody else, and do it, at such a young age, and for a team that's up and coming, I just tell everybody to keep their eyes on Elly De La Cruz, because I think he's just now touching the surface of what he could possibly be, and I think he's going to dominate this league.
X, let everybody know when they can find you. What you got going on this week, man? I know we could find you anywhere, not just in the country, around the world.
Yeah,
we
man.
never know. Where are you going to be this week? This weekend?
Opening week. I'll be ESPN. I'll be on MLB on opening day, and then on Friday I will be Apple TV Plus. I'll be in Houston for the Houston and Mets series that kicks off opening day. So just stay tuned. I'll be out there, but definitely make sure you check in on Apple TV Plus on Fridays.
Yeah, no doubt. We know our friend Trisha Whitaker is going to be over there too, so make sure you say hello. Xavier _ Scruggs, the one and only, one of my favorites to catch up with and also to follow on all social media. He's not just a great baseball mind, but also a really awesome human being. He's one of those people I tell everybody, like, you meet people in this industry and you wonder, like, are they really like that? And no, X isn't like that. He's even better. He's the man, great husband, great father, and a great friend. So, X, I appreciate you. Be well, my friend. Enjoy the start of the season, and we'll catch up soon, buddy.
You too. Thanks for having me, Jay.
You got it, pal. Xavier Scruggs, man. Doesn't get better than that. He had to get his hair done. We had to get him on. We'll squeeze him in, baby. We've got time here on the Jay Recher podcast. But again, just every single time If people ask about like Recher's rapid reaction, when I first started doing X said something to me. He was like, hey man, keep it up. You're doing a great thing. And we trade messages like that. And I implore everybody out there to be able to do that same kind of thing with people in your life. Trade positive messages, find ways to uplift other people, because man, we get embattled in a lot of crazy things in our life. There's ups and downs, there's trials and tribulations. You want to make sure that you surround yourself with great people, and don't ever forget about sending, a kind message to somebody. You never know what kind of impact that's going to have on somebody's day. All right, let's bring him in. Oh man, this setup is getting better and better and better. The one and only Zac on the mic, Zac Blobner. What's going on, brother? How are you?
It's tough to follow up X, man. I mean,
the X man.
My guy's just out there killing it. No, that was a lot of fun listening, and man, I'm just excited. Baseball season's around the corner. March Madness. I mean, you and I talk about this every time this year. It's so much fun from a sports angle. Obviously, you're at the Valspar. Like, it just feels nonstop, and then we hit playoffs, and then we get like a nice breath in the summertime, and then it's all over again.
I know, it's so funny. Every time we say March Madness now, the Ronnie Lane match Markness, because I was at the Golden Diamond Source yesterday picking up something for the Callahan event the other night, and it said Match Madness, and I just started dying laughing because I thought it said Match Madness.
Well, I think that's what tripped him up originally. I got to go back and like listen, but I think that played a role.
No doubt about it, because it got me for sure. People, I ran into a couple of listeners over the weekend that were asking about you and sending you some well wishes. So that's always great to see. Some guy like came up to me and like didn't say anything and like bum rushed me kind of, and like put his fist out like, hey man, they did you wrong, man, blah blah blah. He's like, I miss you. And I was like, my mom and dad were behind me. I was like, they were like, does that happen a lot? I'm like, yeah, sometimes. This guy was like pretty aggressive with it. But just like, I got to throw up the Duke sometimes. You never know, man. You never know.
Yeah, you never know, bro.
We've had a lot of well wishes, which is good. It's still all love with all those guys over there. And a lot of love. I don't know if you saw, I had Chris Harry on yesterday from FloridaGators.com. And, we always talk, Gators, you and I, regardless of the sport. But man, like, it's not hyperbole to say that this team is one of, if not the best team since the back-to-back champs. Remember the Wilbekin years and, the years where they had some good runs there. And then Walter Clayton, I think he may be the best. He may go down, like, let's say Florida wins it. We'll get to it in a little bit. But if they win it, he's going to go down as one of the best players in Gators history, right? Like, he's that good. First consensus All-American for the Gators. I mean, what a year, Zac, that they've had. I said this yesterday. Me and my dad watched pretty much the entire Florida-Auburn game. And I was so impressed they were able to go to one of the most hostile environments, not just in the SEC, but in the country. And they were out in front the entire time. It was like old Mario Kart where they started in first and Auburn started in eighth, and the Tigers can never catch up. What a season for this team. I mean, could you put into words what they've been able to do now in the Sweet 16? And, I think one of the prohibitive favorites to go all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't let the UConn game kind of dissuade you from the fact that it's been a great season, and there still are a 1 seed with a path, obviously, to not only the Final Four, but a potential national championship. I'll say this, like Todd Golden, and you and I have had the pleasure of speaking to him a couple different times, interview style, very likable on the front end. I never thought that this team, even with all the talent they have, would take the jump that they did this year. Last year they just made the tournament. We were happy as Gator fans that they were just in the dance. Disappointing they lose round 1, and we're like, okay, maybe they can win a game or two next year in March. Now we're talking about hoisting a championship. And it's funny you bring up the Walter Clayton situation. Everybody's making a big deal now because he was on the Iona team that lost to UConn, that started their 2+ year run, and then he's on the Gator team that kind of shuts it down. Walt's great, and he's the first All-American ever in program history. But it's wild to me because all my Gator friends are talking about how he's already a top 5 Gator, and it's impossible, I think, to argue against that. But it's crazy because there's so many Gator greats that weren't first-team All-Americans that did win championships, though, and I think that's kind of the one thing holding him back. In the hypothetical you asked about, Jay, if the Gators do go all the way and he continues to be the kind of factor he was like he did against UConn, especially down the stretch there, it's not only top 5, you're talking top 3. And maybe you're talking about him as potentially the best Gator ever from what he does in college. It's tough to beat the back-to-back teams.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to love Noah, Horford, obviously. And those are just the two main guys, but it goes down from there. I think about Parsons, Bradley Beal. Like, there's a lot of guys, but Clayton's already in that chat, and a deep run for this team could change things.
Yeah, it's funny too, and Chris brought up this yesterday that he almost has he's got like 30 less threes in 2 years or year plus than Lee Humphrey, who was such a fantastic shooter, had in 4 years. Like and obviously the game has changed a little bit, but Lee was still shooting. I think of the Teddy DuPays of the world, like they're some really good shooters there. The Brad Beals, like it's just amazing to see what this kid's been able to do. And I don't know if we ever thought, and I'm with you, like Golden came in and now all of a sudden everybody's looking at him as like one of the best young coaches in the game, right? And I agree with you about the whole UConn thing. And again, talking to Chris yesterday about this was Dan Hurley and the way that he was able to kind of keep the Gators on their heels defensively. Like you're not going to see a bunch of teams being coached as well as Dan Hurley was able to do. And you got a game coming up against Maryland, who ironically enough, Selton Miguel, former USF standouts on there, but they play 7 or 8 guys. And if they try to get up and down with the Gators, I think they're going to be in trouble. But isn't it crazy how things changed within the Gators within 1 year? I mean, you look at, remember the discussions that we had about Billy Napier. Now Billy's hitting home runs on the softball field. I saw a video. He's in the home run derby. Now it's like everybody loves Billy and they can't wait. Obviously DJ has obviously DJ.
I still stand in the same place I did the last
with Billy.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Because I love DJ Lagway. You can't argue with what he's been able to do from a recruiting standpoint. And I saw recently, the Lagway talking about Billy being the reason that they played so inspired down the stretch. But I don't know, man. I'm still not buying the Billy hype. I think the Gators are going to be really good on the football field next year. DJ Lagway is the truth. Tons of talent across the board. I think the defense.
So what would it make you to change? What would it take for you to change then? If you think the team's going to be good, obviously the schedule can't be much more difficult than it was last year. Even if it's probably still going to be a murderer's row, but not like we just saw it. But I mean, so what would it take for you to change your mind about Billy then?
Proof, right? Like I don't think I have it yet. I think making the playoff would definitely go a long way. I think winning a game in the playoff would probably silence anything I had in my head. Obviously, context and how that happens. I want to see him not hold this team back with some of the ways he goes about his business as an offensive play caller, because that's something he's kind of been weird about since coming aboard. I think that's really kind of why the defense shifted last year, is because the play calling shifted in terms of who was doing it. I want to believe in Billy. I do. But I go back, and I brought this up to you even when Lagway kind of started playing more last year. I think about his last stint with Anthony Richardson, who Lagway's bigger than somehow, by the way. Crazy side-by-side picture of them. But, he couldn't do much with Anthony Richardson. I thought he kind of fumbled the bag when it came to that superstar quarterback who was a first-round pick. So I think just based on that, that's what gives me the most pause heading into this season. I think the Gators are going to be really good, but are they going to be one of those teams that's kind of like knocking on the door, or are they going to be a dominant force? I think the difference between that isn't the players, it's Billy Napier.
Zach, let's talk some Rays baseball. Before we talk about the team, just your whole – I said this multiple times last week. We were there early that day when it was we're here to stay. I remember getting in there early. We were on for 5 hours. The excitement was there, and now we're not getting to that spot. And we've tried to be optimistic, and we were optimistic that day because it was as far as the Rays have gotten when it came to building a new stadium. And now we know that that's not going to happen, at least with Stu Sternberg at the helm. What's kind of your big takeaway from this entire thing? Because it's just a long process that just leaves a lot of people in the Bay Area miffed and definitely upset.
I know I'm not alone in this. Somehow it's become more exhausting. Somehow it's become worse, right? Like, again, you just think about the years of chatter, but even just the last 12 months, you thought you had things figured out. And I will continue to point back, regardless of where we are now or where we end up. Really, this is falling mostly on bad luck, in my opinion. If the Hurricanes don't happen the way that they do, and the Trop isn't destroyed the way that it is, I do think everything ultimately would have stayed on track. And that this whole original St. Pete Stadium deal would have went through. We'll never know. We'll never kind of see that play out, though. That's a multiverse, right? We're not going to get that version of it. Where we're at now, and I've been saying this to people too, you've had so many different guests on that have kind of come to the same conclusion, even over the last couple months. Like, I just don't see a scenario where either St. Pete or Tampa or the MLB and Commissioner Rob Manfred are in a place that Stu Sternberger is going to be the one that like directs them into the future. Now, what does that look like? Obviously, you're hearing and seeing a lot of different things about like, well, what if these people buy or those people buy? What are they going to do? The one thing I'll come back to, regardless of anything any of us have heard, is that the hurdles that exist in terms of building a new stadium still are going to be there regardless of who buys them, right? Like the timeline, trying to figure out what to do with the Trop needing rebuilt. Like there's still so many factors that are just massive hurdles, both money-wise and time-wise, that it's really discouraging, man. It's probably the most discouraged I've been since the Ebor deal fell through and the Montreal split city plan. Like it kind of falls in that basket. And the one thing, Jay, that I think is the biggest difference this roundabout is we've always been able to pivot to the team and say, you know what? At the end of the day, screw it, man. Let's just go watch baseball. We'll have some glizzies. We'll enjoy ourselves. I don't even feel that as much heading into this year. And I know it's unique and there's a lot of cool things about the Rays playing at Steinbrenner Field. And I certainly am excited to go check it out and be a part of that like fun, different experience. But I think just in general, outside of a guy like Junior Caminero, it's just really tough to get pumped about this team. And then again, you put the shadow of the stadium over top of it.
Have you gone over there at all by the Trop recently?
Actually, I haven't. In terms of like the stadium, I haven't been by the Trop specifically lately. No.
Yeah, I took my parents. They say hello, by the way. I took them by there. We were trying to kill some time the other day, and like, it's still so crazy to see no roof, and like the sign outside still says Bally instead of FanDuel. So it's just like, it's just strange, man. And we've obviously been over to Al Lang, and the Rowdies hasn't played there. They have 4 games on the road. They won't even play until next Saturday. So it's still kind of like crazy that we're still dealing with this kind of thing. I know there was a story written in the Tampa Bay Times today about one of Stu's friends, saying that Stu's a great guy and everything. It's just like, I don't know if that's really helping right now, because regardless, and you and I have had the discussion with Stu, right? Like, he's not a bad guy. Like, when you talk to him, like, you shake hands, seems like a nice guy. But then, we had the discussion with him at FanFest the other, 2 years ago about, I'm going to take a loss on my P&L statement. And me and you were like, all right, you're a multi-millionaire. Like, he just does things that just fall on deaf ears. And you got to be able to relate to the people that are going to try to go to these games and support the team. And I just feel like I'm with you, man. Like, I just don't see how a new stadium is built with him as the owner. I mean, whether he wants it bad or not, I don't see how it's going to work out. And especially with Ken Welch, who you and I spoke to, and Ken Welch was one of the biggest proponents of this deal. He put his legacy on the line, right? When it comes to this deal. And he's like, oh, the bridges are burned. I don't trust Stu. If Ken's not trusting him, Zach, how the hell is anybody else going to do it?
And I'm glad you put it that way, because like, it's a short list, Jay, right? Like it's only a handful of us, I think, left around the area. I don't know if there's anybody on the list anymore, or, maybe a friend here or there. Like, again, I don't think he's a bad person. I've stood up in many a chats, publicly and privately, for Stu. And because for me, I talk to, and I have throughout my time the last few years, talking to employees of the Rays that speak very highly of him. Not baseball players, like literally people that just work in the Rays organization that have nothing but good things to say about him on all levels. And that's something I've always kind of went back to. But we're at a point now where like none of the government officials want to deal with them. Major League Baseball doesn't want to deal with them. The fans, for the most part, have been fed up with them. If there's any left, like I'm sure they're off board now. And then you talk about different media members and folks around town with a platform. I don't think there's one left that has his back. So we're just at a place where he's kind of whatever friends, I guess, or people that had his back, supporters is probably a good term. Shout out to the Rowdies. Look at that, throwing some soccer knowledge in there for you. Whatever supporters were left over the last 12 to 18 months, I would say have, for the most part, if not fully, evaporated. And it doesn't mean he's a bad person. I agree. I want to echo that. But from a baseball standpoint, from a stadium standpoint, it does feel like he's kind of ceilinged out in terms of what he can do as the owner of this team in the capacity that he is.
Anything else besides Junior Caminero give you hope or positivity about this year? I was going to ask you.
Here's the thing. I can't even be as fully excited as I want to for a guy like Ryan Pepio. Big fan. Right. Obviously, we both love the guy. Anybody who's met him, like, he's awesome. But like the reason he's getting the opportunity to take the bump is because of McClanahan's situation, who was a big proponent, the guy that we were excited about. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm still going to be yelling at the TV, whether it's cheering, booing, whatever's going on. Like, I'll still be supportive. It's just really tough for me to buy into this team as one that, especially from some of the squads we've got in the last few years, I just don't have a lot of faith, man. And it's tough to say that because I've had nothing but optimism for this club the last, again, 5-6 years. And I just think we're at a place now where it's really transitional, both with the stadium and the roster. Right. Yeah, man, it's tough. It's tough to get excited about this team. And we know that they traditionally, I know 2 years ago they had the historic run, but they usually struggle the first month. Their schedule's out of whack. Jay, I don't know, man. I wish I had more good vibes. Junior Caminero, give me all the junior highlights.
Give me all the junior stock that I can get.
Yes.
I was listening to the Zone Heads podcast with Brandon Kravitz the other day. I try to tune in a little bit every week that you guys are on, every Monday. Go check the guys out. And I saw Brandon post something that Cinderella isn't dead, but it's dying or something. And I said to myself, Zach's a Disney guy. How is he going to let Brandon say that about?
I was anti-death of Cinderella, by the way.
Yes.
I had to pull him back off the ledge because he was like, she's not. I was like, listen, man, you're missing the story here. You're mixing it up too much. But I've enjoyed the tournament, regardless of the Gators. Like, I think we were closer to a lot more chaos. It just didn't work out that way. But I mean, it's the madness. There's always madness, even if some years aren't as chaotic as others.
Yeah, and I think just because this year was a little bit more chalky than others doesn't mean it's always going to be like that. And I actually think of, you look at some people look at, and maybe it's different for basketball or football. Some of the arguments that I saw for football this year was that, when you look at the NIL and transfer portal, and maybe for basketball, you'll say, all right, well, you don't have as many roster spots, right? So you can buy all these guys or pay all these guys, whatever. But for football, the argument was actually the other way around, that 4-star prospects weren't going to sit there and be a backup at Alabama for 2 years because they could go get paid somewhere else at a mid-major school. They get paid, at another team in maybe in the ACC, right? Maybe, all right, you're not starting Alabama as a 4-star recruit, but, hey, go get a chunk of change and go play for North Carolina. So I wonder if and I think it's kind of we're going to continue learning about the NIL and the college landscape. I don't know if because you and I have spoke about this for a lot. Super conferences are coming. At some point, we're going to see some big, it'll probably be 4 big-ass conferences where you split up the entire country. But until then, I think you're going to have kind of what we saw with the college football playoff, where you saw some blowouts in round 1. And then in basketball, you're going to see some chalky years. And then I think the next year could be completely flipped. What do you think?
No, I agree. And I think the death of Cinderella are talking about these, the mid-majors or the seeds that are kind of feeling, I guess, the pinch the most because of the transfers. Like, I don't want to downplay that. And I know you just mentioned Miguel. I saw Cason Pryor on the bench the other day for Luke. Like, we know a bunch of these really good players from USF even 2 years ago that left and went elsewhere in the transfer portal. It makes it harder, I think, for the mid-major teams that are good to stay good, for sure. But I don't think it makes it harder for the mid-major teams that are good to be good. And I look at, McNeese State with Will Wade was able to get into the second round. Like, that was a popular team. I think you're still going to have teams that pop off. I just don't know how much you're going to see those teams kind of repeat year after year in terms of being like a really big threat in the tournament. But there's still a ton of fun. Look, whether you're talking about the Gators, I mean, you can look at a lot of these teams too that aren't quote unquote Cinderellas, but did use the transfer portal to be in a position now that they couldn't have been in 12 months ago.
Right. Yeah. Chris Youngblood going to play, at Alabama, Tuscaloosa kid, which is great to see for him. Selton Miguel and Cason Pryor, like you said, like those guys were all getting big 6-figure deals to be able to go play for somewhere else. It's tough. And I know that's one thing that Amir told them. He's like, go do what you got to do, man. Go do what you got to do. Go get that bag while you can. Before I let you go, man, let everybody know what you got going on. I know you're working on some brand management stuff. Everybody wants to know.
Yeah, I'm just out there, man. Just out in the world doing things. I think, honestly, the biggest part is just kind of enjoying the disconnect. Something because – and God bless you, I know you're still plugged in. I see it, Emily, still suited and booted, man. Looking good,
Always.
my friend.
Always.
And for me, it was just like the disconnect, I've actually found some like peace of mind in it. So really enjoying that, but you can still find me at Zac on the mic pretty much across the board. And anybody who needs help with anything from a brand standpoint, always looking to kind of extend my services and help those that are looking to build brands and stuff, especially from scratch. I know there's a lot of small businesses that are just like, we're looking for any kind of direction at all. I can help you out on that, man. But yeah, man, just kind of enjoying sports from a different angle, and still love seeing you out here, man, crushing it. Like I said, whether it's being at the Valspar, being at Emily, having X on, like you're doing a great job, and just love what you're doing with the podcast, man.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I got Ryan Callahan coming up next, so we got to, this is an all-star crew today. Fitting right in, buddy. And then let everybody know when they can hear, the Zone Heads podcast and everything you're doing with Brandon as well.
Thank you. I appreciate the shout out on that too. Yeah. Brandon and I are still doing a lot of stuff every Monday. You can find us around 10 a.m. Just look up Zone Heads. Zone Heads Media is the website. You can find Zone Heads podcast pretty much across the board, across social media, sharing it on my Facebook, on their profile page, on Instagram, Twitter. It's all over the place. Just talking sports, man. Like I said, really laid back. The Hawaiian shirt was on purpose. Like, just, I'm finding the zen. I feel like Phil Jackson, right? Like, I'm finding the zen, Jay. I'm finding the zen these days.
I feel like you have your own, like, little Dave Willsy kind of, Tommy Bahama kind of thing going on.
Opening day is coming around the corner. We always think about Dave a little bit more when we get closer to that first game, for sure.
Yeah, you got that right. All right, Zac on the mic. Go check him out when you're trying to build that brand. And, of course, check out the Zone Heads around 10 a.m. every Monday morning. All right, brother. I appreciate your time. Go Gators. I'm going to be pulling for you guys, except when they play my Dukies. But you know what? You
mentioned Mario Kart. That might be the blue shell that finally gets them.
That's right. I actually picked Alabama to win because I couldn't pick Duke and I couldn't pick Florida. I had to go off the reservation a little bit.
Respect that.
So I was like, I'm going to pick Alabama because I never pick the team that I really want to win because that never works for me, ever. And then my mom, she picked Duke because she was like, I thought you were going to pick Duke. I'm like, I'm not picking Duke. My brother just picks Michigan State every year because he's an Izzo fan. He's been doing that for the last 30 years.
Some cheddar on it too, though.
He certainly did, man. Zac, appreciate your time, man. Give my love to your better half, and we'll catch up soon, buddy.
All right, Jay. Sounds good, man. Later, everybody.
All right, buddy. See you, man. Zac on the mic. Go check him out. Build that brand. Zac has done such a good job of, listen, it's disconnecting, taking a breath of fresh air, focusing on that mental health. That stuff's important, man. It really is. And we still keep in contact. We text every couple of days, us and John Momola. It's important to do what's best for you. So many times when we get into our profession, and I think we get lost in the sauce a little bit when you work in sports media because you love what you do, because you love talking about sports. Well, one thing I definitely want to articulate and remind everybody, like, this is what I do. It's not who I am. And when you go through what Zac and I went through and what Momola went through, I think sometimes like you deal with it in certain ways, right? And sometimes you need to keep your foot on the gas pedal and continue doing that and stay in the rotation, stay top of mind, continue to do what you do. That's the mode that I took, right? Momola is doing a little bit of a different thing where now he's writing for Barrett Sports Media, doing some freelance stuff. Like, that's, what he wanted to do. Still wanted to kind of attack it from a little bit of a different, maybe a farther away perspective. And Zac kind of took himself out of the equation, dipping his toe in the water a little bit with Brandon Kravitz, working on brand management. So listen, it's not about what happens to you in this world. It's about how you react to it, how you pivot. We've had Mike Neighbors on it. His book, Don't Quit, Pivot. There's ups and downs, right? And that's just, I always took the point of view throughout this entire process of like, I just lost my job, right? You know what I mean? It's not the end of the world, right? I'm still doing what I love. I'm still here at Amalie Arena. Still got a chance to speak to Ryan McDonough and Jon Cooper today. Like, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing of like keeping things in perspective. Your point of view goes a long way. And I'm still blessed to be able to be credentialed, to be able to go to Amalie Arena, to be able to go to USF and UT and Rays and Bucks. Like, you're still going to be able to catch me at all these different locations to be able to cover these teams here in the Tampa Bay area. But doesn't mean what Zac did, right? Taking a step back and, gathering himself, taking a deep breath and going about his business in that way. Like, that's wrong. Everybody's got to do what's best for them. So we all find these changes in our lives where all right, you're used to doing something for 10 years. Like I was at iHeart for 10 years and then all of a sudden, boom, one day everything changed. So again, it's not about what happens to you. It's about how you pivot, how you adjust to that next aspect of your life. I coached baseball for 8 years and then I did radio for 10. And now, after 18 years, almost 20 years living here in the Tampa Bay area, now it's time for that next step, time to do the podcast, time to do some more stuff with, some of the local foundations and charities. That's why you see me working with the Denard Span Foundation, working with the Bowler Family Foundation with Titus O'Neill, and working with the Ryan Callahan Foundation. Callie's going to join us here in a second. It's important to utilize the time that you have to make sure that you're making the people around you, right, better, making the place where you live a better place. That's important to me. And especially, you guys know, my parents none of my family lives here. My mom and dad just left back to New York, and it's important to make sure that you surround yourself with good people and you do a lot of great things. And again, that's why I am involved now, and we'll bring him in right now. The one and only Ryan Callahan with the Ryan Callahan Foundation. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Good, Jay. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Man, thank you so much for joining me. I'm here at Amalie Arena in Suite 71, suited and booted, ready for the game tonight against the Pens. Coop was giving me grief about my shoes because that's what Jon Cooper does. But yeah, let's get right in. I want to talk about the foundation right off the top, man. I felt so inspired by the last couple of years and going, and I don't know how your wife, she reads these like poems that are just like, she's from like a different like era, right? I feel like she's from like she got like a Maya Angelou vibe to her. These poems that she reads, and then to see all the video packages about these families, not just the kids, but the families affected by pediatric cancer. I had to be involved, and that's why I'll be more involved Friday night, and then obviously going forward. Just take us through the beginning of like the creation of the Ryan Callahan Foundation and where it's come to, because my God, I've seen the growth myself, and it's amazing just to see how far it's come.
Yeah, first of all, sorry about the glare. I've tried to figure out the glare. And
you're good, buddy. You're good.
But yeah, I mean, and you speak of the growth in the foundation, and from day one where we started, now 11 years later, me and Kyle are also shocked by where it is now. And it just started, and it was simple, and it was a simple act. And I've told this story before, but when I signed in Tampa and I signed a 6-year deal there, and I saw the community, we wanted to do something to give back, right? And what avenue we were going to go down, we weren't 100% sure, but pediatric cancer was close to Kyla's family's heart. She lost a cousin at a young age. And then, work that I do with the Rangers when I played there at the Garden of Dreams, and just seeing kids, having kids of our own, we kind of couldn't imagine, going through that with one of our kids. So we decided to go the avenue of pediatric cancer. And the first year was just, and that's all we planned on doing. Is what we did the first year is just having families come to the suite, have a night away from the treatment center, from thinking about the cancer, just to enjoy a hockey game in a suite with other families that were kind of dealing with the same thing. Watch the game, and then afterwards come down and meet me, sign some autographs, and then the guys on the team are so generous, they'd usually pop in if someone had a favorite player, and take some pictures and sign some autographs. And then throughout that year, Kyla especially, she'd sit in the box with the families. We just got to know the families and learn their stories and their needs that were presented with having a child with cancer. And we thought, we need to do way more than just having kids at the game. We need to help these families emotionally, financially, basically any way we could. And after that first year, we decided to officially form the Ryan Callahan Foundation, become a 501c3, and start helping families in other ways than just the game. And it started with sending families on trips, which we call the 2-4 Club, kind of a Make-A-Wish style trip. And then also helping financially, paying for mortgages, rent, little things like cell phone bill, gas bill. Because one thing we learned that, I didn't know before, obviously, was that, the parents are with the kids in the treatment center, right? And they're not at work. And not every work is understanding that, you can miss months of time and still be employed or still being paid. So a lot of these parents are being laid off or have no work, have no income, and they can't afford day-to-day basics of groceries and their rent or their mortgage. And so we jumped in there and we helped there, and we've kind of just organically grew throughout the years. And, we're still developing programs now that, we're seeing needs pop up. And, Kyla last night had a bereave session with a therapist where, families come in who've lost a child, and, there's 5 or 6, parents on there talking to a therapist, talking to each other, trying to work through those emotions of their loss. And, that was one of the programs that we've recently launched. So we have a wide variety. And again, you go back to our event, we had a gentleman come in who owned a funeral home in Tampa, and was generous enough to pay for funerals. Unfortunately, when the child passed away, and he'd come in and pay for funerals. So, and then obviously the move back to Rochester as well. We're both from Rochester, New York. And, obviously we started in Tampa, but we wanted to bring what we were doing in Tampa to our hometown as well. And now we're running all the same programs in Rochester as we are in Tampa. We're licensed in New York State. We're licensed in Florida. So we're helping kids from everywhere. And, it's kind of give your head a shake, where we at now from where we started, but it's been great. I mean, it's very rewarding to be able to help these families that are in so much need, and these kids that are in so much need. And we just take an organic approach to it and help where we can.
What does it mean when you see your former teammates and even guys that like you didn't play with here with the Bolts, and then they show up and they're out, and it means the world to the people that are there. But I mean, to be able to see, and of course you play with guys like Hetty, but like some of these other guys that, you only know them kind of through the guys that you played with, but to see the Lightning and the representation, like what does that mean all these years later to see them out there and supporting your foundation?
It means everything, right? And, and being around the game for so long, you've been around the game. I mean, hockey players, we're a special breed, I think, in that aspect where, we're always willing to help. But as you mentioned, I think it's, I remember I don't know if it was 2 years ago where, Brandon Hagel shows up. I had no relationship with him at all. I didn't know him at all. Nick Paul showed up. I didn't know him at all. So in talking to those guys after, just how much it impacted them and how much they, from the event, just seeing what we do and how much we help. And not to mention the Lightning staff. I mean, the whole staff is usually there every single year, to support me, help me financially with the foundation. It's been a blessing. And, I can't thank the organization enough. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Jeff Vinnick and how he helped start the foundation. Once we started it, he had us over to his house and basically laid it out and said, anything we can do to help, we're here for you. We love what you're doing. So he helped us a ton getting started with questions and also financial support too for the foundation. So the organization's been unbelievable. I knew when I re-signed there, it was a special organization, but, to be there for 5 years and now, being out of it and still seeing their support, it reconfirms to me how special that organization is.
And the weather's going to be nicer. So when you guys hop on the plane tomorrow, you're going to get off the plane. Be like, I like this weather over here. How cool is it? And I we spoke about this when you first got acquired by the Lightning about Ryan McDonough and his leadership with the Rangers. And, they say you can't always go home, but Matt getting reacquired it's still strange to me, right? Because sometimes you close the chapter, right? You never went back to the Rangers, which is still, there's still a part of me that grew up a Ranger fan that's like, yeah, I wanted to see you play there your entire career. Same thing with Mac, right? Like now it's like, I'm glad that you guys both came to Tampa like I did, but just the fact that he could come back home, the fact that Julian brought him back, and he's still playing well. I mean, it's amazing to see what he can do at his age and just the impact that he can have, not just playing with a guy like Chernak, but the entire team defensively.
Yeah, I mean, Mac's a special breed, right? The way he plays, the way he lays on the line. I mean, he's a winner. And I remember right from when he came into New York, first camp and first season in New York when I was playing with him, you could just see that his willingness to do whatever it took to win. And as you mentioned, when the Lightning first acquired him, I remember having conversations with Steve Yzerman. And like any good general manager would do, you talk to guys that have played before that you're thinking about acquiring or looking into. And that's what I told Yzerman. I mean, this guy's a gamer. I mean, this is a guy that you win with. He's willing to do anything. And obviously with cap situations, his departure to Nashville, and it's strange. You do see it a lot in the league, right? I mean, guys rarely ever go back to a team. Even if you're a UFA, you talk about, okay, I get traded, I'll come back after the season's over, I'll resign, with the team, and it rarely happens. So to get Mac back, I think is a huge piece of why they're having the success they are this year. And the comfortability too, right? He's coming back to an organization that he loves, a city that he loves, teammates that he knows. There's not that transition period that you sometimes see with new players. I think that's a big part of it as well. But, and I think the thing that surprised me about Mac is the wear and tear that he's had on his body throughout the years. Because like I said, he lays it on the line, right? He's dealt with injuries, long playoff runs, but his durability and the level that he still plays at has been so impressive to me.
Yeah, I always think the greatest story is when Gretzky, I think he had to take over for Torts one year at the All-Star game, and it was 3-on-3, and he tapped Mac, and he goes, "Go play with Crosby and Ovechkin. You've been chasing them around for the last decade." such a great. Anybody's earned the ability to do that, it's him. I want to ask you real quick, not to go too deep into it, but the whole Stammer thing, because I talked to Stammer a couple of weeks ago, and it's just the sentiment part of it, right? Like you want to think that guys are going to play, their whole careers there, but it doesn't work out. How tough is that? And again, I remember what you went through with the Rangers, and it's just like, how tough is that to realize that, like, as much as you think that you want it to be a certain way, that there is a business side of it, and there's a story, here our good bud Ed Encina wrote it for the Times, that maybe there is a pathway seeing with Mac and Gordo that, maybe Stammer could, finish his career here in somehow, some way. But how tough is that as a professional athlete to realize no matter what you do, no matter how many times you can block shots from Chara and Ovechkin, like at the end of the day, it's a business. Like, how humbling is that? Because it's easy for us on the outside to be like, oh yeah, you just sign for less or do this. Yeah. Like, there's a business side of it that even the people in the media don't really get. But how tough is that as a player to realize that aspect?
It's extremely hard. And I think the longer you're in the league, the more you realize it, just because you see it, right? And you see the sides of it of, friends and teammates leaving and guys like Stammer that you think would be spending their whole career in one organization. And it's hard. And, as you mentioned, I think you look at it, at least I did towards the end of my career too, is like, yeah, you have that option to sign for less but at the end of the day, the organization, as they should, is looking out for the organization, right? And I think you have a responsibility as an athlete to look out for yourself as well. And
right,
there's two parts to that, right? And and a guy like Stammer, I mean, it's still tough to see him in that Nashville uniform for me. He was, in my mind, a Lightning for life. And, not to get in the minutia of everything that went on and the negotiations and everything else. And that's part of the business, unfortunately. Yeah. And I understand the fans aspect of it too, of, I look at the fans as an extension of the organization, right? They want what's best for the organization. So of course you want a player to sign for way less and less money, and so you get other good players in, and I understand that, and that's what makes hockey fans so great, is their passion, and they're wanting to win. And but as a player, it's tough. And I think you saw a little bit of that with Stammer early on in Nashville, right? A little bit of growing pains of getting used to a new organization, going somewhere else. I think a little bit of shock of leaving the Lightning, a place that I know he envisioned spending his whole career there, right? So I think you see a little bit of that, but I hope too. And as you said, I hope there's a way that, is there a path for him to wear that uniform one more time, whether it's 1 year or whatever it is, because he deserves to be retire as a Tampa Bay Lightning. He deserves a statue next to Andrechuk's statue. His jersey's going to be in the rafter. There's no question about that. What Stammer has done for that organization, from an 18-year-old coming in, as the organization wasn't where it, wanted to be at that point, going through different owners, to bringing 2 Stanley Cups there, and ultimately being a pro in that community, as well as what he brought to that community. So I hope there's a pathway back, and unfortunately we don't see it enough, but hopefully in Stammer's case, he can get back there at least, maybe 1 more year, whatever it is, and put that sweater back on. But, you can still, he's still, you talk about the struggle of his start a little bit, but, he's still right around that 20 goal mark. You still see that he can play. You still see what he's doing. He's still a player. I know Nashville's not where they want to be, where they thought they were going to be at the start of the year, but he still has miles on those tires. There's no question.
Yeah, he does. So what do you look at the Lightning right now? I mean, how do you see the team? We got 12 games left before the postseason. How do you see them as they stack up with some of the other teams? And what other team out there are you looking, whether it's Eastern or Western Conference, and going, that's a team to really keep an eye on as we get closer to the playoffs?
Yeah, I think, just if you look at the Lightning specifically, it looks like they're going to probably pull Florida or Toronto in the first round, right? And but I like where their game's at. They're a little bit of late up and down, win one, lose one. So if I'm in that room and I'm on that team, I take these last 10 games or so, and I want to be playing our best hockey heading into playoffs. And you talk about their first round matchup, whether it's Toronto or Florida. I think it's going to be a great series, right? There's no easy matchup there. And you look at the East, looking at teams. I think Florida again, as long as they get healthy, obviously Kachuk coming back, and in that situation, I think they're the team to beat right now. And you put the Washington Capitals there with the regular season they've had, but can they translate that to the playoffs? That always doesn't happen, as we know all too well. The year we broke the records for most regular season wins and lost to Columbus in 4 straight, and you saw that with Boston after they beat that record and ended up losing to Florida. So, I question Washington a little bit like that. Can that translate to the playoffs? But I think those are the top teams in the East that you're going to look at. But I'd like Tampa's chances just as much as anybody's. You got Vasilevsky in net. Obviously, the big cat, when he's playing his game, it's so hard to beat. And then you have your core pieces. Gensel's fit in tremendously there. Then the way Hagel's playing too. I think you have 4 30-goal scorers on that team right now with Kucherov and Point, Hagel. So, you got Hedman on point. So that's a team that I think that can make a deep run. Absolutely. And, you look out west, and there's so many teams out west that look at, right? You have Vegas, you got Colorado, you have Dallas, you got Winnipeg. So I wonder, once you get to the finals, is that West team going to be beat up and tired from what probably will be a couple 7-game series, 6 or 7-game series to get to that point? And it also looks like we might get Dallas, Colorado in the first round, which I think is unbelievable matchup, right? Obviously with the Rantman drama, even and going to Carolina, then to Dallas. So I'm excited. This is the best time of year, right? I remember as a player, it was around that 10-game mark left in the season where I would start to get really amped up, start to look forward to the playoffs. When you lived in colder climates, it started to warm up. Spring was coming. Playoffs were in the air. So as a player and also as a fan and now as an analyst or whatever, this is the best time of year, gearing up for playoffs.
Before I let you go, I got to ask you, as a kid that grew up and watched Mike Richter in '96 with the World Cup and USA hockey and how important like Richter and Leach were growing up, and then to see you and Mac and like the American guys, there's just a difference, because it's the national sport of Canada. Yeah. And when you're an American kid that grew up loving hockey like I did, the U.S. players always they mean that much more. And everybody talks about Canada being able to play in international competition, but we've had a nice run too. I mean, we've had some good players and some really good teams over the years and grinders. And I was so excited to be able to see this group with Matthews and Eichel. What was your take on the entire Four Nations face-off? I was at a party up in New York for that first game against Canada, and everybody, the men, the women, the children, they were all around the TV watching it. That's hockey at its finest.
Yeah.
I mean, for a guy that donned the red, white, and blue and represented our country, what was that like to be able to watch hockey on the grand stage and get so much love from ESPN and other big time media outlets that may not be always kind of lockstep with what hockey is doing?
I mean, it was an absolute home run, right? Going into that Four Nations tournament for the game of hockey. And even myself going into it, I didn't know what to expect just because it wasn't the Olympics, and kind of a tournament that's thrown together, only 4 nations. How would the guys react and what would the compete level be? But in doing it myself, it's different when you put on your color sweaters, man. It's, you get a whole different kind of energy and excitement. And I think it showed in the games. And, these players have been fighting it for so long, trying to get this international competition. They showed up and delivered. They definitely did. And, speaking of the U.S., I think, going into that tournament, we've had our success, as you mentioned. We won the silver in 2010 in Vancouver, but this group of American players, this seems like it's a different level, right? Of talent and as you said, grit. The goaltending's unbelievable. That tournament was so fun to watch, and I was locked in. I was cheering for the U.S. all the way, and disappointing that they lost, but it was an unbelievable showing, and I think it just grows the excitement of the game and also grows the excitement for the Olympics next year, right? I mean, I can't wait to watch that tournament and see what happens there. And I had people texting me same thing that don't even really watch hockey with what do you think? Who's going to win? What's happening? What's happening with these fights? So it was an absolute home run for the game of hockey, and all credit to the players that were involved that laid it out there. And it's funny. I sent a text to Sorelli and Hagel, and I said, I hate that you guys won, but I'll tell you what, you boys put on a hell of a show, and congratulations on the win. And it was so much fun to watch.
Yeah, amazing. I did think it definitely grew the game. I'm excited to see more international competition in the future. That is for sure. Ryan Callahan Foundation.org, all the information, how you can help out the big event, the Gold Rush Friday night. I love you, buddy. I'm wearing a freaking cowboy hat and a cowboy shirt, and I bought cowboy boots. I'll probably never wear that ever again. For a kid from Long Island, my friend's going to see pictures of me, and they're going to be like, what happened to the hip-hop Jay Recher that we grew up with? The things you do for your friends. But
that's what makes our events so fun, right? It's always themed. The people dress up, and you've been there before, but it's just it's a party, right? Everybody's excited. We're there for a great cause. And this year's going to be no different. We have a lot of fun things set up and planned, shooting some cans with a BB gun type thing, and a bunch of all different things, and mining for gold and diamonds. And it's going to be another great event, raising money for the kids and the families who really deserve it. So I appreciate all your support, always being there, and I guess dressing up as a cowboy, even though you're a city boy.
You got that right, buddy. Ryan Callahan Foundation.org. You can help out pretty much 365 days a year. You can donate. Every little bit helps for these families that are affected by pediatric cancer. He is Tampa Bay Lightning, New York Ranger, and Ottawa Senators great Ryan Callahan. Did you ever get a jersey, a Senators jersey?
No, I never got a jersey. I got to fly to Ottawa for maybe 4 hours to get a medical, and I flew back. So that was about it. My dad, though, when I did get traded, they traded my contract and everything. My dad showed up to my house with an Ottawa Senators hat on the next day. He had a little fun with it, but no jersey. Yeah, no, I'm still waiting.
Yeah, still waiting. Well, we'll let everybody know up there. Hey, yeah, I know you got some good players up there. We'll talk to Claude Giroux, see if he can hook you up. Callie, appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you very much, and continue success. And see you Friday night, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Jess. See you Friday.
You got it, buddy. The one and only Ryan Callahan. Again, RyanCallahanFoundation.org. Every little bit helps. Just go and just read some of the stories. Go look at what they've been able to do to impact some of these families. And, I was having this conversation with my brother the other day. I was a kid, actually my parents, I'm the oldest of four. I got a bunch of nieces and nephews. And when I was young, I had a lot of convulsions, seizures. And I also had, I think it was 16 ear infections before the age of 1. I had some real medical issues before I ever turned 1. And I always mess with my parents and say, like, why did you have 3 kids after that? Right? After what I put you guys through. But it just really puts things in perspective. You can have conversations and you can go back and forth. I wish I had this, or I hope I have this. I want to have a boy. I want to have a girl. But at the end of the day, you just want to make sure that your baby's healthy. Right? You just want your kids to live a happy, healthy life and to do whatever you can to make sure that they, get through their adolescence with good health, and you support them and do everything you can to help them so that they can be, a functioning member of society, right? And a great adult. So when you see stories like this with the Ryan Callahan Foundation, like again, every year I would feel more and more inspired to do something. And that's why this year that I ended up, joining in and helping out the foundation. So if you're going to be there, make sure you come by and say hello. You'll see me with the cowboy hat on. Again, the things you do for your pals. But I'll be there Friday night, and hopefully you will be too. All right. That's going to wrap it up for me. We'll have Eric Erlinson, Lewis Hilton from the Tampa Bay Rowdies joining us on the program tomorrow. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Jay Recher, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, a little bit of everywhere. Like and subscribe, hit that notifications bell. So you find out when we go live here on the program. I'm here at Amalie Arena. I'll be here all day. Lightning and Penguins tonight at 7 o'clock. Go check me out there as well. A big thank you to all of our guests on the program today, Xavier Scruggs, Ryan Callahan, and Zac Blobner, and you for tuning in. I can't do this without all of you. All right, back home tomorrow for the Jay Recher podcast. Also have the Beckles and Recher podcast at 3 o'clock tomorrow, so you don't want to miss that either. Back here on Thursday, home on Friday. It's a crazy week, but that's what we do here on the Jay Recher podcast. I love you all. Like and subscribe, follow me, do all that jazz, and we'll see you tomorrow at noon right here on the Jay Recher podcast.